Welcome back to Chapter 1. This is the podcast where we talk about media and react to it. We primarily react to films, books, and music, and today we're reacting to something very, very special. I feel like I say that every single time I record, but this one hits a little bit different. Today we're talking about Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049. Now, if you don't know who director Denis Villeneuve is, please turn this episode off and go get yourself some popcorn and sit down and consume some of his media, because he has produced some of the most intriguing, capturing media that I've consumed in a very long time. He's responsible for things like Dune Part 1 and Part 2, Sicario, and Arrival. I prefer his science fiction creations over his other stuff, but he just does such a lovely, lovely job. His films definitely have a certain aesthetic that they're dedicated to, which really, really pulls me in. It's kind of moody, dark, emotional, and that's how I define myself too. So Blade Runner is actually something that has been around for a while. I believe that the two films that are out there, or the major films that are out there, are loosely based on a novel. The first Blade Runner came out in 1982, and I know that there are some smaller films here and there that are dedicated to this universe as well, but 1982 was the first kind of bigger film, I believe, and it really wasn't that big. This is kind of a cult classic. Apparently, when both of these films came out, they were kind of a flop, which is so unfortunate because both of them are so much fun. They both have their own aesthetic and emotion, and they're just entertaining. The cast in Blade Runner 2049 has blown me away. Now, I've seen this film a few times because I just think it's so beautiful, but for some reason this time around I was really drawn to the way that the people in it interacted with the world and each other. So I'm gonna primarily focus on that, the sound design and score, and the visuals, because they're just breathtaking. So this film stars Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Jared Leto, Ana de Armas, and Sylvia Hoeks are the ones that I'm going to mention. Everybody else, every supporting role did such a beautiful, amazing job, but these five specifically just blew me away, and I'll get into why. So first of all, if you have not seen Blade Runner or Blade Runner 2049, turn this episode off right now. Just go do yourself a favor and expose yourself to this universe and these stories without my opinion. While I was watching Blade Runner 2049 this time, like I previously briefly mentioned, the way that the people interacted with each other and the world really blew me away. Ryan Gosling is the star of this film, and he portrays a character who is a robot, essentially. In this universe, they are called replicants. Replicants were created to essentially be like a workforce. They were designed to help humans clean up planets so that humans could reside there. And so there's this whole storyline that we don't even get to see called Off-World, that the replicants were designed to help create. The replicants, I believe they can vary in how realistic they are, but Ryan Gosling's character, Officer K, is extremely realistic, meaning he mirrors a human being to a very minuscule detail, which I guess would make sense if you're trying to create a being that the general public should trust. Because when you think about police officers, you want people to trust them so that they feel safe and cooperate. So I don't know why, but this watch through, my brain was like, why would they make them so realistic that they sweat, that they bleed? The bleeding part for a police officer seems somewhat silly because it just seems like it's going to get messy, but maybe there is like a play in emotions around having a being that can bleed and how that affects other people emotionally. So the main story of this film follows Officer K, and essentially we follow him through this discovery and solving of this mystery that there is a being in this universe that was created by a replicant and a human together. They had adult relations, basically. And the replicants were always under the impression, and the humans were always under the impression, that replicants could not reproduce on their own. They had to rely on human beings to create them. And so the story follows Officer K through this mystery of discovering that replicants can, in fact, reproduce without human beings stepping in. Well, I mean, they could, but, you know, or they do. They do have to step in, but it's just the idea that they can create a being just like humans can is a huge breakthrough, and it's a revolution for this race of replicants. And so we get to follow this character around, and in the beginning of the story, he's very much someone who just does what he's told to. He plays by the rules, he follows the guidelines, all of that, and he doesn't question it. And he doesn't question it until he realizes that this miracle is happening. And then we get to see his brain kind of unfold and consider the fact that replicants are alive. They're beings. So it's really fun, really, really fun to watch him evolve and become this being that is a little bit deeper than anybody believed they could be. And as the mystery unfolds, we discover that Officer K believes that he is the chosen one. Basically, the replicant and the human that created this child, he believes that they are his parents. And the film does a really, really nice job of keeping the viewer in mystery, because the way that it builds up to Officer K discovering this and then accepting it and then walking through the acceptance of it, it's heavy when you go from being this being that is just plays by the rules, does his job, goes home, lives life how he's told to, and then you think that you are the being that's going to change the entire world and the future. That's heavy. It unfolds that he is not, which is something that is also extremely heavy to discover and walk through. Imagine going through such an evolution to be told that you're not who you think you are. And so it's fun to watch him become someone who breaks out of the norm and starts exploring these what ifs. And then that develops into this whole other chapter that he didn't even consider. It's very emotional. It's a very dramatic ebb and flow or peaks and valleys kind of situation. And watching this character go through this, it's hard to watch sometimes. And as the movie continues, we discover that it's not him who is the one, but this other being. And so it turns from him believing he's the one to him protecting the one so that this revolution can happen. And it's so beautiful to watch just his character go through this, but then to see how that ripples throughout this universe and affects all the other characters is really, really cool. We're introduced to these evil, dark characters who want this to happen, but want this to happen for bad reasons. And the balance between good and evil in this film, it pulls you back and forth for sure. And it's interesting to see when we're first introduced to Officer K, he interacts with the world in such a minimalistic way, but as soon as he gets behind closed doors, he becomes very, very human. It's kind of sweet, actually, and I found myself questioning why he does the things that he does if he's a replicant. We follow him home, and he has this computer or AI that is essentially his partner, and we get to see them interact, and it's really tender and just very human. And then you get to see him unwind, quote unquote, from the day that he's had. It just like there are several moments in the film where I'm like, wait, why is he doing that? He doesn't need to do that. But it is all to, from my understanding, it is all to help him feel just a little closer to being human. Like, he drinks coffee and he eats and he drinks alcohol and smokes cigarettes. And I'm like, why would you do any of that if you don't need to? But when I think about it psychologically, it could very much help him feel connected to the race that is the majority on the planet. It's interesting, and I love that it convinces the viewer that this is a human being. This isn't a replicant. We're following someone who's just like us and can help us relate to the character a little bit more. So the evil side of this universe is played by Jared Leto and Sylvia Hoeks. And oh my God, Sylvia Hoeks plays this character named Love. And she is like, the moment you see her, you're just like, this person or being needs help. She's just so sterile and committed to her creator, who is played by Jared Leto. And his character is called Neander Wallace. Essentially, Wallace is the one who inherited the corporation that started replicants, which that whole story is covered in the first Blade Runner from 1982. So Wallace takes over that corporation and continues on the development of replicants. Because of that, and because he has revolutionized the world, he has the most intense God complex I've ever seen in a character, and it's so creepy. There are a lot of different moments where I'm like, is this person a replicant? And I'm still a little confused about it, honestly. In the first film, replicants were, if they didn't tell you that they were replicants, they revealed that they were because they had this shimmer behind their eyes, kind of like when a bit of light gets into a dog's eyes, you can see there's like a film there. I don't know what the purpose of that is, but there is like a scientific reason behind all of it. That's what the replicants look like in the original film. They have that little bit of shimmer behind their eyes. Neander Wallace has a similar feature, but it plays more into him being blind. So it almost looks like he has cataracts, which adds to the creepy factor for sure. And I'm not sure why they did that. It feels like it is just a creepy factor because there's no explanation, and from my perspective, there's no reason for it. Aesthetically, it's pleasing to look at, but it does leave you unnerved. And so Wallace and Love are the main two characters that are pushing this evil narrative, and they do it so well. They're both so sterile and inhuman and obsessed, and it just feels so, it makes my skin crawl every time they're on the screen. And everything about them is just like the music that plays when they're present, the environments that they're put into, it all nods to this evil concept. They did, like, these actors did such a great job at portraying this. Jared Leto he's so monotone but like power hungry, and there's certain scenes that are just, they feel so evil and inhuman. They did a great job balancing this out. And the good side of this is primarily portrayed by Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, and Ana de Armas, who is Officer K's partner. Harrison Ford is present in this film. He has a small role, but he is there. And that is a connection to the original film. So in 1982, he played the star in Blade Runner. He played a character called Officer Deckard, and he interacted with the replicants and did the same job that Officer K was doing, which is titled a Blade Runner. A Blade Runner, his purpose is to find the older replicants that have outdated, essentially, and take them out. So Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling play these Blade Runners, and there's a very, very potent scene at the beginning of Blade Runner 2049 where Officer K is retiring one of the older replicants, and the older replicant is played by Dave Bautista, and there's this whole like fighting scene, and it's the introduction to this entire film, and it's so powerful because this replicant obviously knows something that Officer K doesn't know and hasn't experienced, and he basically guilt trips Officer K through the entire time that they're fighting. Because why wouldn't you? Like, someone's coming out to kill you and you're just supposed to accept it? Absolutely not. Especially when you've been created for something and you recognize that life is more than that thing. Of course, you're going to do whatever you can to survive because you've shifted frequencies and you've recognized that life is so much more than you thought it could be. So the opening scene is really powerful. It's really beautiful. It's really quiet, which I love. I love the use of sound design and score in this film. Hans Zimmer composed the score, and honestly, Hans Zimmer is probably, let's say confidently, Hans Zimmer is my favorite composer. He has done so much work that is so beautiful and atmospheric, and I really do wonder if he has an understanding of sound healing, because in a lot of films of his, I find myself easily swayed by the score and getting emotional and stuff like that. Specifically in Dune Part 2, I found myself at moments being very tense and emotional, and I have to hand that to the composer. So while we're on the topic of the score, I do want to say that this film also feels that same way. It's very sci-fi, but otherworldly. Like, Hans Zimmer did such a nice job of creating a score that feels earthly, but also untouchable. Like, we have not experienced a life or environment that this score would fit into. He does such a nice job of creating an alien environment. In all of his sci-fi films, I think he does that very well. But in Blade Runner 2049, I think he really broke out and did things that are like industrial and dirty and impactful. And in the slower, like more human scenes, he does a really nice job of pulling tenderness and sadness out of you through his scores. The last thing I want to go over about this film, and then we'll kind of wrap it all up by tying these things together, is the aesthetic. This film is so beautiful visually. It's so impactful. The way that I'm assuming it's the director or photographer who works with the director to create these shots. It's just so smart. This creative team, I want more. It's just so beautiful. The use of color, the use of shadow, it's just smart and something that I hadn't seen before this film, really. I love the way that they use color to shock the viewer and to use environment and light to make it feel busy and overwhelming, specifically in the city of Los Angeles. It just makes you feel claustrophobic and just so thoughtful. So the main three things that really, really hit me this watch around were the actors and the people and how they interacted with each other and the world, the aesthetics, and then the score. Other than Dune Part 1 and Part 2, there aren't really any other films that, from my perspective, that I've seen so far. Oh, wait, there's one. There's a early 2000s film called The Fall that is not a sci-fi film at all, so it's kind of a different realm. But just the way that it's designed, it feels like it's on this level. But these films, and specifically Blade Runner 2049, just feel like they have a very special place in the world. And it's kind of fun that they've become cult classics instead of big blockbuster films, because it is like, it almost feels like a little family that's getting together to enjoy media that hits a specific spot. I really, truly, truly hope Denis Villeneuve continues to create films. I think there is another Dune film being created as we speak, because this aesthetic, this feeling, the way that it plays out, the pace, the actors, all of it just feel like A+. And so I would like more of films like this. Let me know your thoughts as well, because I'd be curious if this hits other people like it has me. It just feels really thoughtful and intentional and tender. And yeah, I think it's just, if you like sci-fi films, if you like mysteries, if you like having fun, I highly, highly recommend Blade Runner 2049. Again, it was released in 2017 and directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is just really super talented. Super, super talented. If any of this resonated with you, definitely go check out Blade Runner 2049. I highly recommend watching Blade Runner from 1982 as a precursor, but you can definitely do this one on its own without having too many questions. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.